the civilian employees of the U.S. Air Force. They're not in the military, yet they take the same oath. They don't wear the uniform, but they stand shoulder to shoulder with those who do. They're patriotic, hard-working Americans. They are the everyday heroes of Air Force civilian service. Forces joined.
Hello, welcome to Air Force Civilian Service live webinar, Aim Higher. I'm your host, AFCS Marketing and Brand Management Specialist, Cheryl Johnson. Tonight, we will get a glimpse into the promising new program for prevention, pioneered by the Department of the Air Force, now embraced across the Department of Defense as the Integrated Primary Prevention Workforce, or IPPW. Realizing the adverse impact harmful behaviors like drug abuse, crime, domestic and child abuse, suicide, and other harmful conduct have on job satisfaction, unit cohesion, and military readiness, the Air Force has launched IPPW. The program's goal is to curtail destabilizing behaviors before they start. IPPW professionals work shoulder to shoulder with senior-level Air Force leadership, designing prevention programs, crafting effective policies, revising current practices, and implementing solutions that measurably reduce harmful behavior among airmen, guardians, and their families. This evening, I'm going to introduce two exceptional individuals who are helping to spearhead these initiatives and who will answer your questions and offer advice on what you can do to follow in their footsteps. But before we meet them, we want to know more from our audience. Poll number 1, audience, what aspect of the integrated primary prevention workforce for the Air Force appealed to you the most? A, opportunities for professional development and advancement. B, ability to make a positive impact on community health and well-being. C, specialized training and skill building in primary prevention techniques. And D, competitive benefits package and job security offered by the Air Force. Okay, we'll give you a few minutes to answer. Let's see what we have. Okay, and pretty close. 26% voted opportunities for professional development and advancement, but the number one answer is ability to make positive impact on community health and well-being. And the least is specialized training, skill building, and primary prevention techniques. So 51% of you want to make a positive impact on community health and well-being. Great answers. Thank you, audience. And now let's get to know our panelists. Jenny, if you wouldn't mind getting us started by taking a moment to introduce yourself and share with the audience how you ended up where you are today.
Thanks, Cheryl. So exciting to hear that poll. That's really fires us up to even share a little bit more. So I'm Jenny Westcott. I am currently the Integrated Prevention Program Manager for PACAF, which is Pacific Air Forces. In this role, I help and assist bases in the Pacific region, located in Japan, Korea, Guam, Alaska, and here in sunny Hawaii, where I currently am living. I have been doing prevention work for many, many years. I've actually worked for all 4 branches prior to there being a Space Force. So I haven't hit Space Force yet, but we still claim them, in the Air Force a little bit. And I come really from the family advocacy world. I did a lot of work with domestic violence and child abuse and education and outreach for that area. And then in 2016, and we'll talk about history a little bit of this program a little bit later, but in 2016, they created the Violence Prevention Integrator position in the Air Force. So I moved to Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha, Nebraska, as the wife of a now retired sailor. It was the first time I'd ever not lived at the ocean in my life. So we didn't know what to expect, but we absolutely loved our time there. And my heart goes out there. I know there was some really bad storms and tornadoes in Omaha, in Nebraska, and in Iowa last week. So I hope that everybody who's watching is safe and sound. I most recently left off it in 2019 and went to Germany, where I spent 4 years as the violence prevention integrator. And then when the new positions rolled out, I became the integrated prevention chief at Spangdahlem Air Base, which is about an hour and a half north of Ramstein. Most people know where that is. And then I came here to Hawaii for the second time in my life in the beginning of November of this past year. So, as I mentioned, I'm also a military spouse. My husband did 26 years on active duty in the Navy, and I'm now a military mom as well. So I have my husband's sort of had the role reversal, right? Now that he's retired, he's following me around for my career. And in fact, when we got to Germany, he had to get his first dependent ID card. So we've really had a lot of fun with that. And I love that the roles are reversed. So that was fun.
Well, thank you, Jenny. I'm sure you're having fun with this dependent ID stuff. Marissa Ellen, how about you? What led you down this career path you've chosen?
Hey everyone, I'm Marcelle Patterson. Right now I'm serving as the Prevention Operations Program Manager for the Integrated Resilience Division, and I'm here at the Air Force Personnel Center in Texas. What's really neat about our job is it spans all Department of Air Force installations. And so my specific position primarily works on operationalizing DoD and DAF policy for our integrated primary prevention workforce. We're developing and creating different tools and guides and resources for the IPPW professionals, really so that they can have what they need to be successful in their positions. And then for our MAGCOMs and field comms in IPPW, we're also doing training and resources. We're building dashboards. We're working to answer any questions that they have, relaying information about new and existing programs. And I would say what really led me down the path is just dedicating my career to serving our military, serving our veterans, their families. And that's really what the majority of my career has been dedicated to. It's been working really in prevention in one way or another. I've worked with veteran service organizations, military and family readiness, and then I've been working for the IPPW for the past 4 years. And very similar to Jenny, military spouse, I come from a huge military family, really been stationed all over the world. Jenny and I actually met in Europe. She was a VPI in Germany, as she said. I was a VPI in England, which is perfect to have us both here tonight because we've gone to training and conferences together and just really have been there to support each other. So it's really great being here. And then I would say, let me see my position. I relocated to the States about a year ago. So I'm coming up in 2 weeks. I've been here for a year, and I was OCONUS in Europe between England and Germany for the past 14 years. So I'm just really excited to be able to support the efforts of the IPPW and really just ensure they have what they need to be successful, what resources. And then I really enjoy being in kind of an advocacy role, advocating for things on their behalf and stuff that they need.
Interesting. Talk about being all over the world, Marissa Ellen.
Yes, I
Jenny,
love it.
can you tell us why the Air Force and the Department of Defense have put such an emphasis on prevention? How does it fit within the Air Force overall mission?
Yeah, it's really a critical part of the mission, right? We need mission capable airmen, sailors, soldiers, Marines, and guardians. So kind of a little bit of history. Prior to 2016, we had all of our response agencies in place, right? So we had the Family Advocacy Program and mental health and our sexual assault prevention and response, SHARP if you're not with the Air Force. And so we had really great people doing really amazing work in those response agencies. But for those of us that were trying to do prevention and outreach from those individual agencies, we realized we're really doing a fantastic job at response, but not such a great job at prevention. And so in 2016, the Air Force was kind of the first to realize that we needed to expand that prevention capability. So they created this position called the Specialist for the Primary Prevention of Violence. I was actually one of the first folks hired in the Air Force to do this work. And that name really quickly went away because it's a mouthful. And so then we became the Violence Prevention Integrators that Maricela and I both were. And we were an office of one, right? At every Air Force installation in the world, there was one person doing that work. We partnered very closely with our community support coordinators, CSCs as we know them, but their mission is different. They were focused, and somewhat still are, on resilience and getting that word out there, where we were really focused on interpersonal and self-directed violence prevention, a much more targeted lane. And we were trying to break those stovepipes down. So as the program kind of evolved, so did our workforce requirements, right? We realized one person at each installation, while great, and not a capability that every branch had, wasn't enough. Sadly, probably everyone has heard of the case of Vanessa Guillen, who was tragically murdered by a fellow soldier at then Fort Hood in Texas. And our Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, decided we needed to look into this as a DOD and figure out what was happening. So he implemented this independent review commission, or the IRC. They were experts in all of these fields that came together and worked for many months to come up with a list of 92 recommendations. And when they put that before our Secretary of Defense, he said, yes, we're doing all of that. And out of that came some amazing changes that we're now seeing implemented within the last 2 years. Much of the changes were SAPR or SHARP related. So the changes to how the sexual assault response is done, changes to the UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice, changes to the court system in the military and how that operates. But then the big part of the IRC findings was standing up this independent prevention workforce across the branches, and really giving it the emphasis, the money, the personnel that it deserved to be successful with that. Although her death was very, very tragic, and we always try to honor her, it was the catalyst for the creation of the IPPW.
Yes, and we certainly appreciate all the work that you do. Thank you. Marissa Ellen, the same question from your perspective.
I think what we saw is the IPPW, it grew from that VPI and that CSC position that Jenny mentioned. And so now it also includes a prevention specialist, a prevention analyst, which was what the former violence prevention integrator position was. We have a prevention coordination specialist, which was our previous CSC. But now we also have an integrated prevention chief and an integrated prevention and response director. So we grew, which is so nice. We created room for growth as well. So whereas people may have felt like they were stovepiped, as Jenny said, like I'm in the VPI position or I'm in the CSC position, and there's really no upward movement. We created that, as well as creating positions at the GS 11 level, which is our entry level positions. So this team, the IPPW, they were working collaboratively to address root cause issues. They want to really prevent things from escalating into significant problems. They're trying to see what are the protective factors that we can promote within our community. What is the different data that's out there? How are we looking at tackling some of the risk factors that may be present in our community? And then we're looking at all of that information. We're taking these programs, these risks and protective factors, and we're trying to apply them across the social ecological model and saying, okay, what can we do for an individual level? What can we do at a relationship level? What can we do at a community level? And really, what are our prevention efforts and strategies that we want to get after so we can prevent these problems from occurring?
Excellent. This is such a rewarding career field, and I'm so happy that it's growing. So what qualifications are you looking for in the positions you're trying to fill?
I would say typically a bachelor's degree in the social science field, but I want everyone to keep in mind that is a very broad field. There are many things that encompass the social science field, because I think often a lot of people think, oh, I don't have a counseling degree or I don't have a degree in social work. That's okay. I don't have a degree in either one of those. But what I majored in was communications, and that actually falls within the realm of social sciences, and it counts towards that education requirement. So I can qualify for those positions. I think what was really neat was to see everybody's answer from the poll. And with that, I would say a passion for prevention and a commitment to promoting protective factors, resilience, and community well-being is something that's definitely really important to this field and to the work that we're doing. If you're just getting into prevention, those entry-level prevention specialist positions, that focuses on doing a lot of outreach and program execution. And then as you move up within the IPPW, that's where you can get into a little bit more of a specialty. So like our program analysts, they're the ones who are working with data analytics, data visualization. If that's something that you enjoy doing, you want to take that information, that data, and you want to tell a story visually with that prevention analyst role may actually be a really good avenue for you. We also have our prevention coordination specialist position, and that's our people who are focusing on resilience. They're working with our master resilience trainers, our resilience training assistants. How are we building youth and family resilience in our community? They're also looking at those risks and protective factors. Is there anything that's preventing us from building resilience in our community? And then as you continue to move up, we get into our prevention chief position, and they're the ones who manage the suicide prevention program, but they also supervise the prevention specialists, prevention analysts, and our prevention coordination specialists. So if you have a real passion for suicide prevention and leading teams, that might be something that's a good fit for you. And they're also, in addition to that, they're looking at some of the prevention strategies. What are some of the evidence-based programs that we can use to get after risk and protective factors, things that we've identified in our community? And then I think another really important thing is these are all non-clinical positions. I think oftentimes we have a lot of social workers or counselors who are working in this field, and they're thinking about applying to work for one of the IPPW positions. You can't operate in a clinical aspect within these roles. So that's always something I want to make sure that people understand, because there can be a little bit of a confusion between also like what some of our True North program providers are doing, and then also what's happening within the prevention program.
Awesome. Thank you, Marissa Ellen. I think it's important that you clarified, looking at the job description, because people will get turned off if they think they don't have the right degree. So thank you for clarifying that. Jenny, perhaps you could elaborate on those distinctions and help the audience understand the difference between the mission of True North and what IPPW is doing.
Sure. So True North is a program that's a clinical program, right? So you need to be a licensed clinical provider in order to work there. So it's not in our mental health clinics, which we have, everywhere, but it is embedded in the actual squadron. So it would be a clinical provider in a squadron working with airmen every single day. They really become a part of that unit, and therefore are much more trusted, maybe confident for some folks to go and talk to. We still have our mental health clinic. That's still doing the great job that they do. This is just another resource for our airmen to go to. So it's actually been morphing kind of into a new program now called True North Plus, and it's going to have an expanded capability, even more than just a clinical, not just, that's not the right word, even more than a clinical provider, right? So we're going to try to figure out what that's exactly going to look like, but it's really exciting. Again, emphasis is being put on making sure mental health is readily available to our folks in any way, shape, or form that they want to get to it. As far as the prevention workforce and how do we fit into that, we are not clinical providers. We do not do that work. So, but yet we need to be partners with them, right? We need to know who they are, partner with them to go out and do things. Breaking down those silos is, such an important part of this work. If it wasn't, we would still be back where we were before, where we had these people doing family advocacy prevention and SAP prevention and whatnot. So not only True North, but we should be partnering with EO, Equal Opportunity, and health promotions, and our military family life counselors. I mean, there's so many wonderful helping agencies on the installation. And I feel like our prevention workforce is sort of the tie that brings them all together. Our prevention workforce is in charge of the community action team, which is a board that's set up of all the helping agencies, and they kind of coordinate all the activities that everybody will do and have hands in, right? And if you have a clinical background and you're looking to do prevention work, that's great. Just understand that while you're doing the prevention piece, or the prevention job, you cannot be a clinician, right? So even if you are a licensed clinical social worker and you took a prevention job, you cannot do any kind of counseling while you're doing this prevention work, right? It needs to be a separate, it needs to be different. So really do a little soul searching and think about what works for you. Personally, I am not a good clinician. I knew that was not the right thing for me. So the prevention work is where my passion and my heart are. But for you, it might feel really different. And I think, we want you to be successful in whatever career you choose to do. So if you're coming into this role, just understand that that clinical piece is not part of it. We have a place for you. We're standing up to this True North Plus, and we're going to need those licensed providers. But if hands-on work is your preference, then this might not be for you.
Thank you, Jenny, for that. Marissa Ellen, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I think it's also important to note, really, the Air Force is truly leading the way with prevention. I think they discovered by taking this proactive approach to prevent multiple forms of violence, we can have a direct and positive impact on mission readiness and also on the culture. We're saving resources, time, money, because we're focusing and promoting healthier and more resilient communities by addressing some of those underlying factors that contribute to problems. And we're also fostering positive outcomes. The Air Force, I think they really prioritize personal well-being. They're trying to make that commitment towards being a resilient workforce, but also trying to dispel some of the myths that maybe surround the stigma with mental health. So we're trying to promote, physical mental health, spiritual mental health, that social mental health. And we find that when you're addressing those issues early on, it helps improve productivity. We're maintaining operational efficiency, and we're seeing some risk mitigation in that work.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we've done a fantastic job over the last 20 years of response in the military, right? We have some amazing professionals working in those roles. And if you or someone is a victim of some type of interpersonal or self-directed violence, I can very strongly say that I believe that our agencies will do everything they can to take care of them, right? But with that said, we haven't done such a good job of preventing those things from happening, right? So we need to get over here on this side, left of the boom, as our commanders like to call it, and really put that emphasis on the prevention side as opposed to the response side. The response side, we've got that down pat, but we want to make them not have clients anymore, right? We want to come over here and stop it before it starts. So if you're, for example, if you're a maintainer, an aircraft mechanic, and you're working on a plane, and your mind is thinking back to like, oh my gosh, I had an argument with my spouse, or my finances are a mess and I don't know what to do, you might not be fixing that plane exactly as it should be because you're just not thinking about it, right? But then we're going to have a pilot that's going to get in that plane and fly it, and that could have deadly consequences. So we want to make sure that we are producing mission capable airmen, healthy, happy, mentally, physically, everything kind of airmen. And that's really where this prevention work comes in. So education, outreach, so many different things within the social ecological model, and that informs the work that we do.
Well, thank you, Jenny and Marissa Ellen. So for the sake of our audience, so for those who don't know, a lot of our acronyms are all over the military, right? So we'll explain what some of those acronyms that we will be using throughout our webinar. But we're now to our poll number 2. This has been so informative. Thank you again for being here. But before we go on, this is our second and final poll of the evening. What barriers, if any, do you perceive in pursuing a career in the integrated primary prevention workforce for the Air Force? A, concerns about meeting eligibility criteria or qualifications. B, uncertainty about the application process and timeline for recruitment. C, challenges related to relocation or deployment requirements. And D, lack of awareness about available opportunities and career pathways. Okay, audience, we'll give you a few minutes to answer. Wow, look at this. 47% of you said concerns about meeting eligibility criteria or qualifications. Now, Marissa Ellen, remember we were talking about making sure that you look at the job description and don't let that deter you from applying, right? So that's good that our audience are wanting to know more about the criteria. Next one is uncertainty about the application process and timeline for recruitment. We have recruiters here that can answer some of those questions for you all. And we've got challenges related, 18%, lack of awareness about available opportunities in career pathways. Very interesting result. Thank you, audience. Jenny, I wonder if you wouldn't mind answering a personal question. What do you find most satisfying about what you do? And what is it that make you love your career?
Oh my gosh, a million things. I love my job. I mean, every day when I get in the car and I go home from work, I ask myself, what did I do today to make an airman's life better? And if I can answer that question, then I know I did a good job, right? But if I can't answer that question, if I have to really think hard to think about it, then I need to do better tomorrow. And really, I the military is my family. We, as I mentioned, a military spouse, military mom, military daughter, granddaughter, I mean, whatever. So I love it. But even if you don't have that connection to the military, there is something so special about serving. I never donned a uniform, but I'm still able to support the folks who did. This is my family. It's always going to be my family in the military. And I want to make sure that they're healthy, happy, safe, and able to protect our country.
All right, panelists, we are getting a lot of questions from our audience, which is great because I know that, this is such a great conversation, right? So one of the questions is coaching being used as a preventative effort? If so, how?
I mean, I can speak to that. I actually have some coworkers now who are in a coaching class getting that certification. And certainly in our prevention workforce, as we stand up these offices, we have varying levels, like Marissa Ellen talked about. We have entry-level positions all the way up to director positions at an installation. So folks can come in those lower entry-level jobs, and then they're going to be coached by those folks that are senior to them. Our goal is to train you to take our jobs, because I don't know about anybody else, but I don't want to work forever. So I want you to come along after me. And the best way to do that is to train you to get to this next step. I don't know, Marissa Ellen, did you have anything else to add?
Well, I was like, they definitely have it within the structure that's built up for some of that coaching and mentorship, but they have different coaching and mentorship available too if you want it just from other DoD and DAF civilians that you can get partnered with to get some of that coaching and mentorship. There's always room for different professional and personal development opportunities. So if you wanted to go do a coaching certification or get a class so that you can maybe hone in your own personal coaching skills so that you can coach others. And then honestly, there's always different pilots going on throughout the DoD and throughout the DAF on, is this going to be a good program and something that we should be implementing DAF wide? So there's definitely a lot of opportunities available for coaching and to receive some of that coaching if that's something that you're wanting.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll do a few more and then we'll move on to the rest of the program. I'm going to combine these two. How long is the hiring process? And do these careers use military spouse preference?
So I will say that they are honestly trying to do a lot of direct hiring with these positions. Yes, you can use military spouse preference. That is always something available. You can use military spouse preference for direct hiring. I would say sometimes that timeline can differ depending on where you're applying. If you're trying to go overseas versus if you're trying to stay stateside, if you have to relocate for that job. And some of that is just up to the mercy of like the civilian personnel office. And even if you are accepted for a position, there could be a wait time between getting a tentative job offer and a firm job offer. I've seen things go as quick as a couple weeks, but I've seen it take a couple months as well. So unfortunately, there's no kind of like one set answer for that timeline, but it could take a little bit of time just with them processing everything. And then also keep in mind too, these positions are rolled out DAF-wide. Every single Air Force installation added all of these positions at the same time. So there is a lot of competition going out there, like people trying to post and list their positions. So I know that's been keeping like our civilian personnel and AFPC busy with getting, trying to get all those positions filled as well. And also some of the other branches were expanding their prevention programs. And so they're putting those positions out there. So it can cause a lag time with just so many things that they're trying to process.
Well, thank you, Jenny and Marissa Ellen, for answering those questions for our audience. So I'm going to ask you the same question. What is it that made you love your career, Marissa Ellen?
Oh, I'd say like really similar to Ginny. I'm a military child. I'm a military spouse. I have a lot of family that have served in the military. I'm talking like several generations worth of people in my family have served in the military. So really for me, this position, it's just a way that I can support active duty personnel. I can support veterans. I can support military families and helping them get through some of those unique challenges that they may face and making sure that they feel personally connected and a sense of belonging. I was born overseas. The majority of my life and my career has been overseas. And at the time I was born, there wasn't a lot of technology that you can connect with your stateside family. So your military family, your military community around you, they became your family. My grandmother was active duty. She's been friends with people that they were stationed with in their 20s for over 50 years. And that person has become family. Like we call him Uncle Juan. It's not just Granny's friend Juan, that's Uncle Juan that we see around the holidays and such. So I just want to make sure that airmen still feel that way today, even with all the technology and how easy it is to communicate or be on their phones, but that they feel connected. They feel that sense of community amongst their fellow wingmen, guardians, civilians, the families that are out there, really because of all the sacrifices that they're making for our country and for our safety. So like personally, it's just my way of giving back and helping foster that connection to build stronger communities and also advocating on programs on their behalf to make sure that they're taken care of and they feel that they're the number one important thing in the Air Force is them.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for giving back to our community. I want to go back to what Jenny had said a while ago. She said at the end of the day, she asked herself a question: what did you do today to help make an airman's life better? Right? Thank you for that question, because often we ask ourselves, have we made a difference? Right? That's a true statement from both of you of being servant leader, and thank you for giving back to our community. And what about for the people that don't have the military background or come from a long military family? Do you find those professionals, they're able to assimilate? And what advice do you have for them to be successful in IPPW?
I definitely do think that they assimilate. Of course, they're going to have questions if they're brand new to prevention, but also brand new to the DoD or to the DAF, because we have a lot of acronyms and we have acronyms that can have multiple meanings. But in all honesty, they just want someone to be able to take the time, explain that to them, make sure we're fostering an environment where they can feel that they can learn and they can ask those questions. But the biggest thing is that passion that they're bringing for wanting to give back to their country, wanting to serve this population, wanting to help them. And I say that because we've been doing a lot of site visits recently, and there's a lot of new people we've met who've joined the workforce, and a lot of them, this is their first time working for the DAF, but you can just see how passionate they are, how excited they are to be there. They just want to help. And that's really the thing, is having that right attitude and bringing that to the IPPW because of this rapid expansion that we've gone through. We're growing, we're building some of these programs from the bottom up. So we need someone who's passionate and who's excited, but also those outside opinions bring in fresh and new ideas as well.
Yeah, and I think it's great when people want to come from outside the military and serve our country or our military in this way. I mean, the reality is all of us came from the outside, right? No matter whether you were born into the military or you married the military or you were a child or you've never worked for the military, that's all okay. We all have to learn it. But I would encourage you to be very thoughtful about that. If you walk into one of the higher positions and you've never worked for the military before, you might struggle because it really is a new language, a new way of doing business. It's not that civilian way of doing business is bad or good or military way is bad or good. It's just different, right? And we all have to learn it at some point. But when you're trying to lead an office and supervise a team, that might not be the right time to learn. So when we talk about entry level, we're talking about really that prevention specialist position. There's many of them open across the Air Force right now and the Space Force right now. And that would be a good place to start if you've never worked for the military. It's still a great job. It still has a nice income. So it's not like we're asking you to come do something terrible and pay your time, right? It's just a way to learn, and a way to learn how we can support the mission of the Air Force. So, if you take that, if you start that position, that will allow you some time to learn.
All right. Well, thank you, Ginny and Marissa Ellen. So our audience are very engaged, and I love it. More questions are coming your way. question, are there opportunities to work in IPPW at every Air Force base?
Unless they've already been filled, yes.
All right, well, thank you for that clarification. And just to clarify for our audience, DAF stands for Department of the Air Force. So just everyone knows. So this is a perfect segue for my next question. What specific personal attributes and skill set characterize the ideal candidate for IPPW?
Yeah, so I mean, I go out and visit all of the bases in the Pacific frequently, and I've been to many of our bases recently. In fact, I just got home from Japan, and there's people going into these positions not really understanding kind of what they're getting into. They think it's going to be something, and then it turns out to be something very different. So those of us that have been working in the field for a long time, you know, we understand that there's changes, and changes are going to be happening daily sometimes in the military. But that doesn't mean that that you won't be successful, right? You just have to come in and be passionate for the work. Make sure that you are flexible and adaptable. Sometimes we don't give a lot of guidance. The Air Force very much trusts our civilian employees and wants us, the active duty wants us to be their partner. So they don't write the instructions or the regulations so that we are, you know, it doesn't tell you step by step how to do something. Other branches may do it that way, but we do not. We give you a little leeway to kind of make it how it needs to be for your installation. So sometimes there's guidance, sometimes there's not. So we want people that are willing to work, you know, sort of self-starters, right? And as I mentioned earlier, we're in charge of the community action team and the community action board. So we do work very closely with our commanders who have a mission to accomplish. So we don't want to be adding anything to their plate. We want to be taking things off their plate that they no longer have to worry about. So you need to be well-rounded, self-directed individual. Marissa Ellen, what would you add to that?
I'm like second all of what Jenny just said. Absolutely, flexibility, adaptability, they're huge because change is so frequent within the military. And these are growing programs. These are new programs. We're expanding. Change is going to be constant. So really being flexible and adaptable to that change is going to be key. And then I would say on top of that too, effective communication skills is really important because you need to build rapport within your community. You need to build rapport within these teams, the helping agencies. You need to make sure that you each understand each other's needs. How can you support each other? At the end of the day, you may individually each have your own mission, but how can we work together? Because your efforts are just so much stronger when you're collaborating together and there's multiple people, multiple agencies working together to tackle an issue or a problem versus trying to take that on yourself or just IPPW doing something, this helping agency is over here, this one's over here. But if you bring everyone to the table, your efforts are just so much stronger. And that's what I want to say. Like, we're really trying to promote as much collaboration and cooperation together so that you can take that comprehensive approach to primary prevention in your community.
All right. Well, thank you, Marissa Ellen and Jenny. And two more questions here. What efforts are being taken to create a more diverse workforce, particularly in leadership roles?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I think that would be our civilian personnel folks or our recruiters might be able to answer that better than Marissa Ellen and I.
Yeah.
Okay. One more question. What are the opportunities for entry-level positions for those of us looking to gain more experience in prevention?
That's going to be that GS-11 position. The prevention specialist position is that entry level. And keep in mind too, like once you get into that, there is training that is set up. They have an actual training plan of training that you'll do virtually. They have you reading up on different DAF and DoD policies. And they also have you come to an in-person training where you're hearing, getting an overview and going a little bit deeper into prevention. So I don't want anyone to think that if you get into one of the entry-level positions, you're just going to be thrown into the deep end. There is a good amount of training happening. And then we really like to foster networking too. So meet other people who are in your same position at other installations and see what they're doing. And that's kind of how Ginny and I really linked up. I got in the VPI position and I called her. I was like, so can you tell me a little bit more about some of the things that you do at your base? What can I do here? And just reaching out like that. And I mean, look, we've been friends ever since.
Right. It's all about that networking, right? Now, for those people who are weighing their options and considering quality of life, do I go private sector or do I become a public servant? What quality of life benefits do you see in working for the Air Force?
Oh my gosh, a million, but I'm a little biased, right? So for me, there's just great pride in doing this work and supporting the folks who actually made the commitment to serve our country in uniform. Every time we go to an event, every time I hear, I say the Pledge of Allegiance or I hear the national anthem or the Air Force anthem, I mean, I just get goosebumps still. After all these years, it does it to me every time. I even get a little choked up sometimes. So there's just that sense of pride and that the work that we're doing is really helping someone. And for me, that fills my bucket, right? So you need to figure out for you what fills your bucket. But we also, look, Marcella and I both, we just lived in Europe for the last 4 years. I live in Hawaii right now. I'm traveling all around the Pacific right now to our different bases. I mean, it's not a bad gig, you guys. And if you're somebody who doesn't want to move around, that's okay too. You can stay right where you are if you have a military base near you and potentially work there, right? And we mentioned earlier, the Air Force is hiring and we want you to come to the Air Force, but every department in the DoD is hiring. So if you're not near an Air Force base and you really want to do prevention and stay where you are, then you can always look at those other bases too. But I think, as I mentioned, I have worked for all 4 branches and I don't ever plan to leave the Air Force because honestly, our airmen, our leaders in the Air Force treat their civilian employees as part of the team. We really are valued. And I think it's just something that gives us amazing purpose in our work. And I think working for the military is a really great choice.
Yeah, I think so too. It's the same with that meaningful work. Like you get such a fulfillment and purpose. Back to what Ginny said earlier, what did I do today for an airman? Like, did I make their day better? But if you're thinking about coming staff DoD, do know that there's opportunities for advancement. There's different personal and professional development opportunities to you. I'd say fairly good work-life balance. I've worked on the other side of that. I was a salaried employee. Oh, I worked insane. I traveled every month, 80 hours a week. It really burnt me out. And so I really enjoy that I get to do this work. It fills me up to do this work, but then I also get to have that downtime with my family and with my friends and kind of enjoy some of my hobbies as well. So I think they're really good at, trying to honor that work schedule and those responsibilities to make sure that you have that healthy balance. And job security is something, I know it's not something a lot of people want to talk about, but I mean, I just see on my LinkedIn people's banners changing, open to work because there's just layoffs happening. And so I feel like you have some really good job security here with them within these positions. And then I would say as much as we're working hard to take care of the airmen, take care of families, civilians, guardians, spouses, and those military communities, I feel like the Air Force, they value that so much and it's just shown through and through. So I feel that's reciprocated. Like I'm taking care of people and then the Air Force is taking care of me as well.
Awesome. This is such a great topic. It resonates, and I'm getting goosebumps just hearing how passionate you both are. And I think that speaks so well when you're doing a job that truly matters, right? It's not just impactful to you, but impactful to the community, which brings me up to my next question. You spoke a lot about outreach and collaboration and what works best when different health and safety groups work together to stop a problem before it starts. But how do we know it's working?
Well, that's the $1 million question. That's what we're all trying to figure out. Commanders continue to ask that question. They want to know, we're putting all this emphasis in this, and is it really working? Is it really making my airmen better? let's talk about suicide prevention. That's something that we of late have put much emphasis on. We do annual training, we do all kinds of outreach events, we partner with other installations on, or other agencies off the installation as well as on the installation. And I still get asked the question when I go visit a base about how, is it working, and how do I compare to other bases? How does my base compare to these other bases that might be geographically located where I am or whatever? And the reality is that that's on us as the IPPW to help those commanders understand that every place is different, right? You guys, even if you don't work for the military, the city you live in is different from the city down the street that, people live a different way. It's the same way with an installation. So we can't really compare. It's like apples to oranges. Yes, they're all maybe airmen or whatever, but they're not, it's just a different mission at each base and a different set of stressors. So we really have to educate the commanders on what those numbers mean, what that looks like. And then it's hard. Prevention is hard to measure. How can I prove that our efforts stopped a sexual assault before it happened? Right? How do you prove that? We're not everywhere making little tally marks. Oh, that guy didn't do whatever. That girl didn't do this, right? That's not how this works. So we have to look at like the whole picture. And that's why having this team now that can partner with everybody is so important. That prevention analyst position that's really bringing in all these different data points and sort of centralizing all of it and able to look at it and make a picture of it is important, and they're trying to figure out and make sense of all of that information.
Marissa Ellen, could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's funny. I like that you said that about mission, Jenny, because when I was in England, our bases were 5 minutes apart, and yet we both had completely different missions and what was going on our installation. So I thought that was a really good point. I think collaboration is definitely key. It really generates synergy. It's helping foster creativity. When you're working together, also amplifies the impact that you're having versus, again, like that one person. So I was always like one VPI, Marissa Ellen here, trying to do this. But when I have everybody else working with me, bringing everyone together to the table in the community, working to achieve those common goals. But Jenny did mention it's hard to measure. Did we have an impact? And so that's one of the things that we're actually working on is building up the evaluation component of the integrated primary prevention workforce. So are we holding things like focus groups or sensing sessions? How are we evaluating the programs that we're doing? Is it impactful? Our behavior is changing. And so some of that is actually new and forthcoming. We're ramping up. We're training our personnel so that they can conduct some of that analysis and be part of that so we can see, are we getting to those intended outcomes? Are we collaborating and working together? And if we find that we're not, okay, what do we need to do to get to those outcomes? How are we going to shift so that we can work together to get there?
So let's talk technologies. We know there's a lot of apps and gadgets out there, right? How are these technologies being utilized to stop a problem early, or are they being utilized at all in this career field?
Yeah, that's a great question, Cheryl. So currently we are piloting some pretty innovative apps. In the Air Force, we tend to send things out to several different installations of varying sizes, varying missions, different locations, and try to pilot it first before we go Air Force wide. We really want to make sure that we want to invest in whatever it is that we are doing. So there's some mental health apps out there right now that are being piloted at a few bases. And we want to know, do airmen like them? Do families like them? Are they being used? We can really track the metrics on things like that we use with technology. And so that's super helpful for us to understand. Before we were just guessing, and like the 5 people I talked to said they really liked it. But now we actually have data and analytics that we can look at that can support that. We have some installations using virtual reality headsets. So it's sort of for suicide prevention, you would put on the headset and you have a conversation with somebody who's thinking about suicide. So it's much easier than kind of doing it face to face, which can be a little intimidating if you've never done that before. It allows people to kind of walk through that and sort of get the nerves out of the way with the virtual reality. We've heard great things from folks that are using that. So that's something that is currently being looked at. And we know that airmen are asking for innovation, right? I am not of the generation that knows all of that stuff. So I rely on my young airmen to tell me like what it is that they want, what is out there. For the longest time, we were worried about our airmen in the dorms, and that they would go home on the weekend, they would stay in their dorm room all weekend long, close the door, and never socialize with anybody else, and until they went to work back on Monday. And we were like, oh my gosh, they're all alone. We need them to connect with each other, because we know that connecting to another person or something is a huge protective factor against suicide and many other forms of interpersonal violence. And then I started talking to a major here in PACAF, Pacific Air Force, and he was integral in starting something called Air Force Gaming. And what it is kind of like a team at each installation of folks that are into gaming. And then they have competitions where they do it against other installations. It started out small, just some people that were, doing this for fun on the weekends. And then now there are actual tournaments that they have. There's prizes that they can win. There's an office in the Pentagon called Air Force Gaming. And guess what? They're not alone. Even if they're in their own room for the weekend, they're not alone. They're connecting with their peers, and they have a support system. Major Bauman is his name. I'm going to brag on him for a second, because he really talks about how impactful it was in other aspects of his life that he had these friends that he made virtually through the gaming. So really, we need to meet airmen where they're at. And I think that there's many things out there like that. We just need to listen and learn. I think there's 100% a space for digital communication, learning, and whatever in our prevention efforts.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. I think technology is huge right now. So thank you for clarifying that. Audience, I want to thank you for submitting your questions. It's really helped a lot with the conversation with our panelists answering your question. That's all we have time for today. Thank you so much to everyone for joining. I want to thank Ginny and Marissa Ellen for being great panelists. I also want to thank our behind the scenes experts, Kathy, Andrew, and Lisa, for answering those questions in the Q&A. Our recruiters, Jean, Leaf, and Hank, for helping to monitor the chat box and providing those answers to our audience. We hope you learned more about the incredible opportunities AFCS New Prevention Initiative has opened for so many occupations. To learn more about the Prevention Initiative and all AFCS job openings, be sure to visit afciviliancareers.com. Be sure to subscribe or follow us on social to never miss a job opportunity or upcoming event. Just a reminder that any of the resources we mentioned will be linked in the chat box, and we'll post a recording from this webinar, plus the resource links on the main AFCS website at afciviliancareers.com. Until then, follow us on LinkedIn, X, Instagram, and Facebook for more tips and hot jobs. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us.